a lot of Marvel movies. If you're in the top 5, you're doing.
Now, this isn't one of the greatest Marvel movies to me.
Whether they like it or not, they're never getting it.
It was supposed to be Marvel's return to dominance. After years of hit-or-miss releases, Fantastic Four was being hailed as the film that would reset the franchise. And with Pedro Pascal cast as the iconic Reed Richards, expectations were sky high. But then, DC dropped Superman, and everything changed.
There was a part in this film where I genuinely started to feel like I was bored, and I noticed I was bored.
Within 2 weeks of release, Superman obliterated Fantastic Four at the box office. Not just beat it, demolished it. Fan reactions turned savage. Reviews for Fantastic Four tanked, and suddenly all eyes were on one man, Pedro Pascal.
It's been a dream to join the MCU. The movie is called The Fantastic Four. I'll confess, I did all my stretching for...
He was supposed to be the face of Marvel's next phase. Instead, he's now at the center of a public meltdown with behind-the-scenes rumors swirling and fans calling for his removal. So how did we get here? What happened between Marvel's expectations and Pedro Pascal's breakdown? And why are some people saying this might be the end of his Hollywood dominance? Let's break down everything, from the superhero rivalry to what insiders are calling Pedro's collapse under pressure.
Sometimes I felt like I was in a Reed Richards science class, which is not what I really wanted to be in.
But first, you have to understand just how badly Fantastic Four lost. When Marvel announced the release date for Fantastic Four, they probably thought they were safe. The cast was stacked, the marketing was aggressive, and the fans? Well, cautiously optimistic. But no one saw what was coming next. Because just 14 days before, DC unleashed their secret weapon, Superman Legacy, a fresh reboot that promised to redefine the superhero genre. And within hours of its release, everything changed. Ticket sales for Superman skyrocketed, packed theaters, standing ovations. Critics called it a bold return to form. Meanwhile, Fantastic Four had already started to stumble after a lukewarm opening.
No, we've actually really enjoyed being with each other.
Well,
He's
that's
one of my favorite people.
In its second weekend, Fantastic Four's numbers plummeted by 60%, and as Superman soared past $700 million worldwide, FF was struggling to stay above $350 million. An absolute disaster by Marvel standards. Fans started comparing scenes. Clips of Superman's intense action sequences were going viral, while Fantastic Four scenes were being roasted online for their awkward dialogue and flat chemistry. It wasn't just a loss, it was a public humiliation. And the media? Oh, they didn't hold back. Headlines read, DC crushes Marvel in 2025's superhero war, Superman soars while Fantastic Four flops, Pedro Pascal's miscast Marvel moment. But the numbers were only half the story. Because while DC was celebrating, Marvel's camp was falling apart from the inside. And at the center of the storm, Pedro Pascal himself. From the moment his name was announced, the internet was divided. Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards? The reaction was immediate, and not in a good way. Fan forums exploded. Some called it inspired casting, praising his gravitas and star power, but many others weren't buying it. He's not right for the role. Too old, too intense, no chemistry with the rest of the cast. Those were the mild comments. Reddit threads turned against him. Fan-made posters roasted his look. TikTok edits compared him to previous versions of Reed, pointing out how different he looked from the comics. And YouTube theory videos exploded with thumbnails like, "Why Pedro Pascal will fail as Reed Richards." Still, Marvel doubled down. They plastered his face across every promo. He did the talk shows, the press tour, the smiling interviews, and for a while it looked like the negativity might fade away. But it didn't. Instead, it got worse after the first teaser dropped. Fans complained that Pascal's Reed Richards came off as too stoic, too harsh, even controlling. It's like he's playing a darker version of the character, one fan wrote. Where's the curiosity, the charm? And when early screenings leaked online, that perception locked in. Viewers were baffled. He doesn't feel like Reed, he feels like he's running the Avengers. The criticism wasn't just about the performance, it was about the energy. Pascal, known for commanding roles like The Mandalorian and The Last of Us, brought a heavy, dramatic intensity that fans said felt completely out of place in Marvel's usually lighter tone. And behind the scenes, it was even messier. Whispers started circulating that Pedro was extremely controlling on set. Multiple unnamed insiders told entertainment blogs that he regularly challenged the director's vision, even pushing to rewrite several scenes involving his character. One report said he demanded a scene where Reed takes full leadership over the team be added last minute, a move that reportedly caused tension with other cast members. Suddenly, fans had more fuel. This wasn't just a bad fit, it was starting to look like a power play gone wrong. And by the time Fantastic Four hit theaters, the damage had already been done. Viewers were walking in with one question on their minds. Why did Marvel give this role to Pedro Pascal? And unfortunately for him, what happened next would only make that question louder. While the public started questioning Pedro's casting, things behind the camera were already falling apart. According to multiple insiders, Pedro Pascal didn't just act in Fantastic Four, he tried to run it. One source claimed he was constantly at odds with the director, pushing for tonal shifts, alternate takes, and reshoots that weren't part of the original plan. Another insider flat out said he thought he was the boss. There were whispers that he showed up late to set, only to demand changes to dialogue he claimed felt beneath the character of Reed Richards. One scene, meant to showcase Reed's humility and team-first mindset, was reportedly rewritten at Pedro's request to make him look more dominant. And that's not even the worst part. A now-deleted tweet from a crew member claimed that Pedro got into a heated shouting match with one of his co-stars over screen time. While no names were mentioned, rumors quickly pointed fingers at Joseph Quinn, who played Johnny Storm. The tension between their characters in the film, fans say it felt way too real, like there was something boiling just beneath the surface. Some even suggested Pedro tried to outshine the rest of the cast, both on screen and in the press. During interviews, fans noted how he constantly talked over his co-stars, redirected questions back to himself, and rarely mentioned the team dynamic. Reddit threads quickly labeled him as egotistical, with one post gaining thousands of upvotes saying, "It feels like Pedro thought this was his movie." Marvel execs reportedly grew frustrated too. A leaked memo allegedly expressed concern that lead talent is compromising creative vision. While the studio never named names, it wasn't hard for fans to connect the dots. And yet, despite all the behind-the-scenes chaos, Marvel moved forward. They hoped the film would speak for itself, that the fans would see the bigger picture, that Pedro's performance would silence the doubters. It didn't. What happened next would turn that doubt into outrage. The premiere weekend was supposed to be Pedro's redemption arc. Instead, it was a total PR disaster. Within hours of the first screenings, social media exploded, and not in the way Marvel hoped. Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, every platform was flooded with reactions, and most of them were savage. Clips from the movie were ripped and dissected online. A single line of dialogue from Pascal, "I lead you follow," went viral for all the wrong reasons. Fans roasted it, edited it, and even remixed it into memes comparing Reed Richards to a villain boss. One viral tweet with over 200K likes read, "Pedro Pascal is playing Reed Richards like he's auditioning for Succession," and the review bombs, they came fast. Rotten Tomatoes audience score plummeted below 50% within 2 days. IMDb was flooded with one-star reviews criticizing Pedro's tone, calling his performance dry, arrogant, and completely off-brand for the MCU. One user wrote, "This isn't Reed Richards, this is a midlife crisis in a lab coat." But it wasn't just the acting. Fans started connecting dots to the rumors, the alleged controlling behavior, the rewrites, the backstage tension. Suddenly people were treating the film not as a failed experiment, but as Pedro's personal vanity project. YouTubers jumped on the trend fast. Titles like "Pedro Pascal destoried the Fantastic Four," "Marvel's worst casting decision ever," "Is Pascal too big for the MCU?" Reaction videos racked up millions of views. Influencers posted side-by-side comparisons of Pedro's Reed next to Iowan Gruffwood's and John Krasinski's takes, almost unanimously favoring the others. One TikTok that simply said Pedro Pascal was never Reed Richards gained over 9 million views in under 48 hours. And as the online firestorm grew, Marvel's silence was deafening. No damage control, no statements, no clarifications. Pedro himself canceled 2 press appearances the following week, citing schedule conflicts, but no one bought it. Instead, the internet filled the void with speculation. And one theory in particular started gaining traction. Pedro Pascal knew the film was going to bomb and tried to take control because he thought it would save his career. True or not, the damage was done. The narrative had shifted. What started as backlash became something darker, a campaign to bury Pascal's place in the MCU. And then came the emotional breaking point. By the second week of release, the buzz around Fantastic Four had shifted from disappointment to disaster. And at the center of it all was Pedro Pascal, now visibly shaken, retreating from the spotlight, and no longer the charismatic fan favorite he once was. It started with a canceled press junket, then 2 more. The studio tried to play it off as fatigue, but fans noticed something was off. Pedro wasn't just absent, he was disappearing. Then came the footage. TMZ leaked a blurry video of Pedro leaving a post-screening dinner in Los Angeles. The clip showed him looking visibly upset, head down, flanked by 2 assistants, ignoring questions from fans. One reporter asked about Superman's success, and Pedro just stopped walking, shook his head, and muttered, "I don't want to talk about that." It went viral within hours. Then came another blow. An audio clip, allegedly from an off-camera interview, surfaced online. In it, Pedro can be heard saying, "They didn't get it. The fans never gave me a chance." His voice cracked. The raw emotion in that clip became the new headline everywhere. Pedro Pascal cracks under fan pressure. Pascal lashes out at Marvel fans in leaked audio. Is Pedro Pascal having a breakdown? It only got worse. A Marvel insider told a major entertainment site that Pedro was deeply frustrated with the studio's handling of the film. According to them, he felt like he was thrown under the bus, that Marvel didn't back him when the backlash hit. He reportedly called the experience soul-crushing and said he regretted ever saying yes to the project. And while fans were once torn about blaming him, this new wave of leaks pushed public opinion even further. People began roasting the idea that Pedro was the victim. One post on X read, "You rewrote the script, hijacked the character, tanked the movie, and now you're crying? Nah." Another went viral for saying, "Pedro Pascal is the James Franco of the MCU. Great on paper, chaos in practice." Even his supporters started to pull back. The final blow? Pedro Pascal unfollowed the official Marvel Studios account on Instagram. That might seem minor, but in Hollywood, it's louder than a press release. It wasn't just a flop anymore. It was a collapse. collapse. And while Pedro spiraled, DC was on a different planet altogether. While Marvel was drowning in controversy, DC was throwing a victory parade. Just 2 weeks after Superman Legacy hit theaters, it had already crossed $700 million globally. It was outperforming projections, dominating social media, and pulling in repeat viewers, something Marvel hadn't seen in years. Critics called it a triumph, fans called it the comeback DC desperately needed, and Marvel, they had no response. So what made Superman work so well? For starters, it was clean, confident storytelling. It didn't try to outsmart itself with multiverse cameos or overstuffed plotlines. It gave fans what they'd been craving: heart, hope, and heroism. A Superman that actually felt super. The lead actor, an up-and-coming star with less baggage and no fan controversy, was praised for delivering a performance that was both powerful and deeply human. His chemistry with the supporting cast was effortless. Even critics who normally bash DC admitted they finally got it right, and it didn't stop there. The visuals were sharp, the pacing was tight, the marketing brilliant. DC focused less on celebrity ego and more on character connection. In short, they let the story speak for itself. But most importantly, there was no off-screen drama, no behind-the-scenes feuds, no bitter press tours, no actors spiraling on social media. It was everything Fantastic Four wasn't, and fans noticed. Side-by-side comparisons began popping up online. TikTokers ran clips from Superman next to Fantastic Four, pointing out just how different the tone, energy, and dialogue felt. One video showed a quiet Superman moment that moved people to tears, then cut to Pedro Pascal yelling at his team on screen with the caption, "This ain't it." Memes poured in. DC made Superman fly. Pedro made Reed flop. Marvel gave us a control freak. DC gave us a hero. Pascal tried to carry the movie. Superman carried the industry. Even longtime Marvel fans admitted, "We lost this round." And as the box office gap widened, Pedro Pascal's failure felt even more pronounced. It wasn't just a flop anymore. It was a direct comparison. Two superhero franchises, two very different strategies, and two very different outcomes. Superman had resurrected DC's credibility. Fantastic Four had buried Pedro Pascal's. And as audiences turned their attention to what DC might do next, Marvel was left cleaning up the fallout. Pedro Pascal used to be untouchable. From Game of Thrones to The Mandalorian and The Last of Us, he became a household name almost overnight. Directors praised his emotional depth, fans obsessed over his charm, and studios fought to get him on their rosters. But after Fantastic Four, that golden boy image has started to crack, and fast. Hollywood insiders say multiple projects that had Pascal attached are now under review. One source told Deadline that a major streaming platform quietly paused pre-production on a film that was supposed to star Pascal alongside another A-lister. The reason? Audience trust, they said. Studios don't want backlash tied to their stars. And then there's Marvel. No official word from the studio yet, but industry talk is savage. Rumors suggest Pascal's multi-picture deal is either being restructured or cut entirely. Some fans noticed that Marvel wiped Pascal-related hashtags from its Instagram feed. Coincidence? Maybe. But in this industry, silence speaks volumes. His management team has stayed quiet, but agents behind the scenes are reportedly scrambling. There's talk of a PR rehab strategy, carefully selected interviews, controlled narratives, maybe even a shift back to indie roles. But whether it works, that's a different story. Because the fans, they've moved on. The same people who once flooded social media with Pedro Daddy edits are now calling him Marvel's downfall. YouTube channels that once celebrated his career are now picking apart his ego. And for the first time in nearly a decade, Pedro Pascal is no longer the fan favorite. To be clear, this isn't just about one movie. It's about momentum, reputation, public image. And in today's viral-driven, cancel-hungry internet, a single flop, especially one this messy, can put a permanent dent in someone's trajectory. The question now isn't just, will Pedro recover? It's, does the audience want him to? Because once the fans turn on you, Hollywood tends to follow. Pedro Pascal went from leading the Star Wars universe to getting shut out of the Marvel one. In just a matter of weeks, his most ambitious role became his most controversial. What was meant to be a defining moment in his career, stepping into the shoes of one of Marvel's most iconic characters, has now become a cautionary tale about ego, about timing, and about how fast Hollywood can turn on its heroes. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't just the fans who rejected Pascal. It was the story, the performance, the energy he brought to a character that audiences didn't recognize. And when Superman came along, with a fresh face, a tighter script, and none of the drama, the comparison was savage and immediate. Two studios, two visions. One walked away victorious. The other walked away in silence. Pedro Pascal may not be done forever. Talent like his rarely disappears. But the path back, it's not going to be easy. Trust has to be rebuilt. Roles will be harder to land. And the audience, they'll be watching, but with doubt, not devotion. He's no longer the face of Marvel's future. He's now the warning sign. And in the world of billion-dollar franchises where image is everything and every move is magnified, that might be the most devastating loss of all.